Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Art of Business English. Happy New Year to all my listeners. Hope your year's got off to a good start and that you're full of vision and ideas. Now, I released an episode on New Year's Day for goal setting, and I hope that you have listened to that episode. And if you have, I hope you've set your 2019 goal planning. Okay, I hope that's underway. Now, in this week's episode, we're going to look at improving our communication skills in English. So, do you attend meetings regularly in English? Are there times when you need to disagree with what someone is proposing? And does the thought of disagreeing with your peers in English make you a little nervous? Well, if that sounds like you, then don't despair, for today I'm going to show you a number of ways that you can disagree in English, okay? So the thought of disagreeing with someone can make some people feel a little uncomfortable, and sometimes, if we're not careful, we can offend people. So remember, we need to be tactful in English and try and not be too direct. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to cover the following: how to disagree politely, how to disagree firmly, and some expressions or some practice examples, okay, of these expressions in context, okay? So let's get things started. So how to disagree politely. The first thing you need to understand in English is that we tend to speak less directly than in Spanish. So if you're a non-native English speaker, this can mean that sometimes you're too direct with your clients or colleagues. And this can sound rude and we should always try and avoid being rude. So let me give you an example, okay, in Spanish here. Lo siento, pero me temo que no estoy de acuerdo con esa idea. Now, if we translate that, it might sound something like this: sorry, but I'm afraid I don't agree with this idea. This in English sounds okay. It's not overly direct, as we've used the word I'm afraid, which means I'm sorry, okay? However, an English native might say something like this, okay? Sorry, but I'm not sure if that's a good idea, okay? Obviously, we think that it's not a good idea. However, we've used a couple of techniques to soften the message. So firstly, you say, I'm not sure, meaning that you put the focus on you and not on to the person who raised the idea. Secondly, we have negated with not, so our opinion. When I say that, I mean I'm not sure. And then thirdly, we have used a positive adjective, good, to refer to the idea instead of saying a bad idea with a negative adjective. Okay, so these are some little techniques that we can use to soften the message. All right, so negate the verb with not as opposed to negating or using a negative adjective like bad. So let's look at some examples or some other expressions that we can use to soften our opinion. Okay, so how to disagree in English. So disagreeing politely, we can say, I'm afraid I don't see how this idea can help. Next one. I'm sorry, but I think we will need to investigate before committing. Number 3. To be honest, you have raised a good idea, but I don't see how it will work in practice. Number 4. To be fair, I'm unsure of how this would work in practice. Okay? So you'll notice that in each of the examples, I'm always referring to the idea and not the person, okay, who put the idea forward, okay? Now, the second strategy that we can use to disagree with someone is to compliment or acknowledge positively the idea and then move on to politely disagree with it. So let's take a look at how this works in practice, okay? So what we want to do here is compliment before disagreeing. So the first one, I think you have raised a good point, but I'm not sure how it would be feasible. The next one, that is an interesting idea. However, I think we need to give this problem some more thought. Thirdly, thanks for raising that. I can see you're really giving this problem some thought. However, I'm not sure how this idea could work in the day-to-day business. Number 4, that's a great suggestion, but I feel we don't have the necessary time to implement it. So as you can see here, I'm complimenting and thanking the person for their ideas, and then I'm following up with the rebuttal. Remember, anything that comes after but or however is what is recalled by the listener. So we use but to contrast between ideas. People naturally and subconsciously accept that what comes after the word but is your actual opinion. Okay, so let's look at how now we can disagree more strongly with someone. So how to disagree firmly. At times there will be the need to be firm with someone and make it clear that you disagree with them. So being firm is fine, however, being rude is not. So we always need to remember that we're dealing with people and people have feelings, okay? So the golden rule that I'm sure your mum taught you is speak to others how you would like to be spoken to. Right, so let's take a look at some expressions we can use to disagree firmly. So the first one, John, I totally disagree with your last point. Next one, that option is out of the question. Number 3, that option is unacceptable considering the circumstances. Number 4, I don't accept that. Number 5, there is no way I can agree to that. And finally, number 6, are you honestly saying we should fire him? So let's break these points down. Okay, we can use totally, completely, or firmly in front of disagree to make our objection to the point even stronger. Okay. Now, in the second example, we are using a very typical expression in English, to be out of the question. Now, if something is out of the question, then it means that it is impossible and not even something that should be considered. All right. Now, in the third example, we are providing some reasoning for our objection. So if we want to make our ideas stronger, then we should always try and attach an example to them. So this is a great skill to learn for all students who wish to improve their communication skills. So let me give you another example. Sorry, John, I can't accept that option because it would mean exposing the company to unnecessary risk, which I'm not willing to take at this time. So you can see it's super clear, and even though it is direct and firm, it's still not rude. So I've led by saying sorry, then I've used the person's name, and if I use the person's name, that means I have their complete attention, and then I follow with because and my reasoning. All right, the third and fourth examples I gave earlier are pretty straightforward, and the fifth option is using the negation not and then the positive verb form agree, which again is a little less direct but also very clear. And in the final example, what I'm actually doing is asking a question. Now, what this question style actually transmits to the listener is that I'm surprised that they could even consider this as an option. Okay, so technically, it's not a real question, as the answer or idea I want to convey is that this is not a good idea. So let's move on to the last part of the episode, disagreeing context and practice. So here in the last part, I'd like to get you guys to practice some of these expressions in context. All right. So in the first part, I would like you to disagree politely in the following conversations. So number 1, John, it's clear to me that we should liquidate our funds and use them, the cash to purchase property. So an example here could be, I'm afraid I don't fully agree with you on that one. All right, again, I would like you to repeat your example after the example I've given to you. So let's look at the next one. John, why not? Analysts are predicting global funds to drop by 20% this year. So my example sentence to that would be, I have read the analyst reports, but property prices are too hot at the moment. Okay, now that you understand how to disagree, let's practice these together. Now, in the first round, we are going to look at how to disagree politely. So what I want you to do is I'm going to give you the sentence and I want you to then say your example using the word or expression I provide. Okay? So first one. Now, use I'm afraid in the following example. I think making the investment in company X is a good idea. You. Next one. Use not sure in the following example. We should aggressively expand into the Chinese market. Next one. Use to be honest in the following example. I think we should hire candidate B. Okay, now in the last example, I want you to thank the speaker and then disagree. You can use one of the following expressions. You have raised a good point. That's an interesting idea. Or thanks for bringing that up. So, if we invest in expanding our sales team, then we could capture more business. You. Okay, now that we have our disagreeing politely practice done, let's look at practicing how to disagree more firmly. Okay, so to do that, we're going to look at these following sentences, same format. Okay, so first one, I want you to use totally disagree in the following example. I think selling off a part of the business will generate the cash we need. Next one, use out of the question in the following example. We should acquire a small business in Turkey to help us expand quickly. You. Next one, use unacceptable in the following example. I think we should fire 5% of our workforce to reduce costs. You. Now, in the last example, I would like you to create a question in response to the example sentence. Okay, so I think a koala should be the logo for our new range of bags. So there you have it, my friends, how to disagree in English both politely and firmly with a bit of practice. Well, that's it, my friends. That's all we have time for. That brings us to the end of another episode of The Art of Business English. As always, I hope that you've found this episode useful. Now, remember to head over to YouTube and check out the video I've uploaded, okay, or I'll put it on the website as well. It will help you to do some of the practice exercises from the episode. In 2019, I've got lots of great things planned for my listeners, but if there are any topics you'd like me to cover specifically, then please do not hesitate to let me know, okay? This year, we'll be adding a bunch of courses to the Art of Business English platform, and we'll be releasing more useful material and ebooks to help you improve your business English. So in the meantime, stay tuned, grab a copy of our 500 Collocations ebook, and start your 2019 off with a strong commitment to improving your business English. Now remember, I'm here to help, so just send me your questions. That's all for me. Then until next week, take care, and I hope you have a great week. Bye for now.